So Michael and I are down here in the middle of the Amazon. We just hiked the Flycraft, I don't know, 200 yards, 300 yards through the bush to a landlocked lake that is absolutely full of giant peacock bass.
I want you alive!
What's going on, everybody? Gunnar here, and I am in the middle of the Amazon jungle. And we're out here streamer fishing for gigantic peacock bass with nomadic waters. I thought this would be a really cool opportunity to basically do a crash course on the jungle. You know, rods, lines, flies, you know, simple casting style, retrieve style, color combos that we found that worked this whole season. Basically, this is 10 weight territory all the way around. You can come down with an 8 weight, you can have some fun with it, but if you hook a trophy fish, they're gonna make you beg for mercy. So definitely 10 weights. I've been fishing the St. Croix Legend Elite all week. It's an epic rod. Power, sensitivity, accuracy, everything you'd ever want. The whole point's that the rod has the energy, you don't have to supply it, right? This is Rio's new jungle line. Actually, it's new for this season, and they have the most epic taper on a sinking line that I've ever thrown. It's literally a shooting head sinking line with a 15-foot tip, and this year the water's been really high. I've been fishing a sink 3 with cone head flies almost all week. And you're just casting out and letting it drop. It's almost like a finesse jig all the way back, and this sink 3's been absolutely perfect. But that jungle line, the taper's just unreal. Loads super close, you know, slip line, false cast, boom, shoot. And you're just shooting instead of casting and casting and casting, trying to get the head out or trying to carry a lot of line. You just shoot, pinpoint right to the target, saves your wrist. Reel's up to you. Honestly, I haven't used my reel once. It's just absolutely horsing these fish. You are throwing into some of, oh man, that was an arapaima. We are throwing into some of the nastiest structure ever. You do not let these fish take an inch. And what's crazy is the 1-pounders still hit like they're 15 pounds. They absolutely rip the rod out of their hand, and you strip set like an absolute tank and just horse them to the boat. Flies. The name of the game is basically a 6-inch fly. I'll give you 5, maybe 5, but that 5 to 6 inch range is really the sweet zone. And the great thing about that is on a 10 weight, they cast like butter. Right, you're not breaking your wrist. We've definitely tried to throw some big flies. I've had a lot of fish eat, you know, maybe an 8 or 9 inch fly with a wiggle tail. Had some good action on that. But if you come down here with a big box of musky flies, that's simply not the name of the game. And what you have to understand about a fishery is the forage base. If the forage is only 6 inches, the fish only relate to a 6-inch object as food. You know, it's not seeing that 12-inch fly as a food source, because that's not what they're conditioned to. It's just like selectivity for trout. It's whatever the fish is conditioned to. So it's like this fishery in general, a 5-6-inch fly is absolutely perfect match for the forage, for the bait that's moving around. You know, going up to a 12-inch fly is not necessarily going to put you on the bigger fish. The bigger fish are all just about finding the right point in the structure. It's all about activity. They're drawn to you catching fish. The big fish are drawn to that activity, and they're still going to bust on the same bait. So if you save your wrist, downsize your fly, you're going to catch more fish, and you still have the chance at the big fish, because that's the forage. I've done almost all my flies with a cone head, just because the high water, the jig's the name of the game, and white for me has been the best, just because I didn't bring any chartreuse. But chartreuse and white has really been on fire all week for, I think, everybody. So that's basically the crash course. I think we're going to stand up and show you just a simple retrieve. A few things that helped me that I struggle with. Obviously, strip setting is so critical in stillwater fishing. Absolutely critical. These fish have the hardest, boniest mouths. You can see my thumbs and fingers are taped up like crazy from lipping bass and having my skin ripped off trying to release them. It's absolutely insane. You really got to drive that hook home. If you trout set once, one, it's hard on your wrist. Two, you did absolutely nothing. So time out, because I totally just forgot all of the leader stuff. Basically, it's super simple. 40-pound mono. Definitely recommend saltwater mono. The abrasion resistance is huge. You're trying to pull fish out of structure. It's absolutely important. But just straight 40-pound. If you got, you know, full sinking line, basically 3-4 feet. If you're fishing at intermediate, maybe 7 feet. I am running a lot of tube flies down here. Definitely check out the tube fly tutorial for the glide fly. Thing has been dynamite down in these waters. I'm making sure I'm not gonna get ambushed by a caiman. I'm just standing right by the water. Seems like there's a weird little divot right there. I run a different leader for the glide fly. Anytime you're running a tube fly, what you have to understand is your fly, the leader runs through the whole head of the fly. So in order for your fly to jerk and articulate and glide, it has to be able to bend your leader, right? Unlike a normal situation where you have a loop to a loop, your hook eye to a non-slip loop knot, that fly is completely free to turn and then pull your leader. And a tube fly actually has to physically bend your leader material because it runs through the whole nose of the fly. So when I'm doing that, I'll actually run bite wire. Even though these fish aren't breaking you off with their teeth necessarily, the bite wire is going to get you the same poundage, 40 pounds. It's going to give you the same abrasion resistance that you need, and it's actually twice as limp. So that fly has way more authority to bend that leader. And something that's really cool about the glide fly is the tube's actually weighted, and that tube gives the head of that fly momentum to bend your leader. So just want to mention that real quick. As soon as I get back on a boat fishing, I'll film for you guys how to do a non-slip loop knot that I've been using. But let's just jump back to the lake. So check it out. So the typical retrieve, the hardest thing I had was I thought I could strip set, and this place totally proved me wrong. Easiest way to learn it, put that rod a foot underwater. If you get a snag or a bump and that rod's above water, mental check, you know you did it wrong. Straight hard strip. Try to keep your left hand really tense and immediately bring it back to the same spot that it left. So as the fish takes, this hand is holding the line. You have no chance of letting it slip through these fingers because just that hand's on the line. And one of the most critical things, oh my gosh, the most critical things, every time you strip that fly, just treat it like you're setting the hook. Every single time, because there's a chance that there's gonna be a fish right behind it. And the nice thing about this line, I don't know if you can see the line on film, but as I strip, there's micro slack. There's just 1-inch coils every other foot, every 2 feet. I can watch these coils as an indicator. When those coils jerk straight out, that's a fish take, right? It's just like watching a big loop, smallmouth bass fishing or finesse fishing. All you're doing is just watching that line because we're fishing deep. We're fishing a jig fly. I don't have that same ability to watch the eat happen all the time. And that line is your just free indicator for detecting the eat. So you obviously want room to strip set. You want to point your rod straight at your fly. You know, you don't want to be way off here or anything. This is all slack. Anytime there's a bow, it's slack. It's a loss of sensitivity, loss of response. You're going to have to move that line farther just to set it home. The biggest thing for distance casting, and even if you can only throw 50 feet, it's plenty, but the double haul is the most effective thing to do it, but the most important part of a double haul is timing and hand position. I'm going to add hand position. So when people tend to double haul, they like to keep it down by their hip. That's not a lot of leverage. You go way up by the rod, you get a ton more leverage. I'm moving that line 3 more feet just by going up to my ear. 3 feet, look at all this room versus staying by your hip, you have no leverage. And I think one of the biggest things that you see people do, and it's really natural to do, is they'll double haul at the start of their cast. Big no-no. Your rod is supposed to accelerate gradually to the end. the whole point is that your rod tip moves perfectly straight, linear. The rod tip should be on a perfect plane, right? If you're accelerating that rod, over accelerating that rod, right at the start, you're over bending that rod and then it's coming up and releasing, and it's the easiest way to throw a tailing loop. This is not the time for a tailing loop when you got cone heads and big heavy flies and you're trying to shoot 60 feet into structure with a 10 weight, right? You need to save that double haul. It should be the last thing you do. It almost replaces a wrist flick on a dry fly rod or a 5 weight, right? It's intended to be that last little punch, boom, boom, moving all the way up to your ear. You got like 3 feet of room to really accelerate that line. So I'm gonna try to zoom in, show you guys how to do this. Kelly Gallup showed me this knot, so I don't know if it has a name. So it's not quite lefties and it's not quite a tarpon loop. It's like a hybrid between the two. I've never had it break. The thing has been rock solid for me for about 5 years. Really simple. So I'm gonna zoom in on a bulkhead and rig it for you guys and show you this loop knot. And I don't have a tripod, so we're just doing all this free frame. See if we can lock right there. Turn focus off. So first thing you're gonna do, tie an overhand knot. Super simple, right? I almost always come up through the underside of my fly, underside, which allows me to go back through my loop. You're gonna tighten down that non-slip loop, oh yeah, and pull it tight to the eye. So all you have is an overhand knot with your line going back through it, down to the eye. Then you're gonna do a double overhand, and this is gonna set the distance of your loop. Get that wet, pull them into each other, and you have a perfect non-slip loop knot. Cut that nice and short. Perfecto. See that? Now the beauty of the loop, right? You got a big loose hook eye, you got a big loose non-slip loop. The two are free. You have basically, you know, all of your degrees of freedom are open to that fly, so it can flutter, change directions, turn its head, compress and undulate, and it's not stuck to your leader. So your fly has freedom to breathe and move, and you get a lot more life out of your fly. So check it out. So some things I want to add. You are more than welcome to lip these fish. They do not have normal little bass pads, okay? This is like 5 grit sandpaper. And they really like to bite down and shake their head when they swim away. And the first 2 days I just ripped up my thumb. I got even more stuff on here. By day, 4 or 5, this is absolutely intense 100% streamer fishing, and athletic tape goes a long way to save your hands, save your fingers, save your thumb so that you can lift these fish and handle them appropriately and safely. And definitely we're using boga grips on the big fish so that we can keep them in the water and make sure that they're not being overhandled. One of the best purchases that I made before this trip are these Patagonia sun gloves, because they have stripping guards on these first 2 fingers. Absolutely crazy. Your rod hand is always in the sun. It's always pointed up to the sky. Your left hand's almost always closed. I haven't even put sunscreen on this hand. Absolutely no problems whatsoever. That sun glove on the right hand has been nuts. Super useful. I'm not a sunscreen guy. Buff, hat, glasses, right? Got a nice pair of Kosas with a really tight wrap, protects your whole face. Don't come down here with aviators or something. And long shirt, long pants. This Patagonia sun shirt has been absolutely crazy. Put the hood up, it's like having a buff without having a buff. Super lightweight, breathable. All of this warm water or warm weather gear is super useful. I don't like sunscreen. It's probably been 90 degrees most of the time, and you just sweat right through it. You hydrate and sweat it out. It's absolutely tolerable. It's actually, you don't even notice. The fishing is so crazy, you don't even notice that it's that hot. So I think that just about wraps it up. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys down here sometime.